Who wants to be sad about video games? You do. And you're gonna be. Now!
Today in Nerd History!
Video games are fun, lightweight, escapist fantasies that let us get away from the heavy baggage of life, if even just for a few fleeting moments. Unless you're a miserable sad sack like me who just revels in feeling terrible. In that case, video games are portals to deep wells of human sadness, asking the players to empathize with unimaginable sorrow. Isn't that great? The fact that players have agency over the story just makes things all that much worse. Here are 6 purely heart-wrenching scenes in video games. Number 1, The Walking Dead. Let's come out of the gate swinging with Telltale's The Walking Dead, which is also a game that comes out of the gate swinging. The first episode of The Walking Dead is a brutal, feel real bad simulator. Though, is it still a simulator if you actually do feel real bad? Anyway, it puts you in the role of Lee, a poor guy whose whole post-zombie apocalypse life seems to be frowning a lot and making an unending series of Sophie's choices. As a game that set the precedent for modern branching story adventures, this game still had tons of surprises. Especially when, in episode 1, you are suddenly, unexpectedly forced to choose who lives and who dies between Doug and Carly by gut instinct alone. This is early enough on in the game that you don't really know either of these characters that well, and you also don't know that it's the other person who's gonna end up dying. The Walking Dead was a pioneer of this game genre, but it still felt like it was subverting tropes before they became, well, tropes. The ramifications of your impulse decision echo through the rest of the game, haunting you with what-if scenarios. Character deaths are an easy way to add drama to stories, but making the player live with a sense of guilt and unease about their basic human response is on another level entirely. And maybe that's the difference between a feel real bad simulator and a game that makes you feel real bad for real. Try saying that a bunch of times. Number 2, Far Cry 2. Metal Gear Solid 5 and Zelda Breath of the Wild are both great Far Cry 2 games, but before that, there was a lesser talked about Far Cry 2 game. Far Cry 2. The open-world mercenary simulator dropped you in a complicated world of militias and political strife, liberating outposts and trying like hell to avoid succumbing to malaria. Most of the game you spend in hot pursuit of a character known as the Jackal, who's been fueling the regional conflict with weapons. But because the game takes place in a world of blazing brilliant grays and no pure black and white scenarios, you end up fighting alongside the Jackal. And when the Jackal presents you with a life-redeeming scenario to save innocent lives, things get even rougher. You and the Jackal make a death pact. One person will detonate a car bomb and the other person will bribe some guards with diamonds and then shoot themselves to steal their part of the deal. Neither of you can be allowed to live, because the conflict will just go on when all you live to do is perpetuate violence. It's a hard truth that actually makes the player confront their own motivations for playing the game. Were you fighting to save lives and end a conflict, or were you fighting because you just love fighting? Number 3, Firewatch's Beginning. Firewatch was one of my favorite games of last year, but for a game that has so many mysteries, its biggest surprise is that it aims to emotionally destroy you before you even get out of the intro. Long before Henry's swapping stories with Delilah in the heart of the Shoshone National Forest, the player is confronted with establishing the history of Henry's relationship with his wife. Things are easy at first, coming up with pickup lines, naming a dog, but as simple text prompts begin to span many years of a marriage, they become darker, making decisions about careers, arguing, and unexpectedly, making decisions as to how Henry deals with his wife's early onset dementia. Firewatch doesn't just settle for giving you context and calling it a day. It makes you choose how Henry, and by virtue of that, you, will be hurt the most. The game is a meditation on grief, coping with loss. Many complain that the game's resolution feels sudden and ends without any satisfactory explanation to the many loose threads. Much like with real loss, the game insists that there are no easy answers. Everything that happened, the decisions that you made at the beginning are your choices, and you just have to go on living with them. Number 4, Fallout 3. As a huge Fallout 1 and 2 fan, this was very upsetting. Harold, an FEV ghoul-turned-tree mutant, is a character present in the Fallout series from the very beginning. First a resident of the Hub in Fallout 1, and then as the leader of Gecko in Fallout 2, Harold even appears in the cancelled Black Isle Van Buren version of Fallout 3, as well as the forgotten, and rightfully so, action spin-off Brotherhood of Steel, as well as that game's cancelled sequel. Long story short, he is the face of Fallout. He's appeared in more games and he's been around longer than just about any other character in the series. On top of that, he's a pleasure to talk to. When Black Isle went under and Bethesda bought the rights to the Fallout series, it seemed unlikely that we'd ever see the character again. But knowing that he's a fan favorite, he shows up again in Fallout 3, and then asks you to kill him. Mutated into a living tree at the heart of Oasis, Harold is in terrible pain and just wants it all to end. And if you can find the strength within yourself to give the series staple what he wants, you'll be killing off the last vestige of what makes the Fallout series Fallout. Or you can leave him alive, perhaps imbued with a sense of purpose, but certainly with the confirmation that Fallout has been transformed forever.
Number 5, Fable 3.
Fable 2 bungled its endgame, and it basically deserves every critique it gets.
It killed the dog for dramatic effect, along with your family, etc., then offers you the option of undoing this or taking a bunch of cash for the dubious purpose of using post-game. It was a non-decision decision that taught the player nothing and meant nothing to the world of the game.
Fable 3 learned from this mistake and goes in a wildly different direction.
You spend the game fighting an evil tyrant and eventually beat him to become king. While the Fable 2 version of this ending would just let you decide whether you're going to be a jerk king or a good king before rolling the credits, the actual version does something far more surprising. It forces you to sympathize with the tyrant that you defeated. As it's revealed, there's an unstoppable evil coming to invade the kingdom and wipe everyone out. And as ruler, your story is just beginning. The game continues on, requiring you to make decisions to either enact cruel policies that will ultimately benefit everyone, or to try and find a way through the invasion without becoming the very thing you once despised.
Any number of games pull that same surprise you're the villain card, but it's truly special when a game makes you confront how that could actually become the case.